Are you all in the right talk? I'm Hazel McPherson. I'm going to talk about how I became a CISO. And if you're not in the right talk, just humour me. So, hopefully I won't get it wrong. And it's mainly about me. So, if I do get it wrong, sorry. So, I'm calling this From Uncertainty to Leadership because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. In fact, that's not entirely true. I'm going to skip a few slides, just in the interest of time, if I can make this work. So, to explain a little bit about where I came from, I'm going to take you right back to when I was a child. And my first thought about what I wanted to be, of course, was an astronaut. Clearly that wasn't for me. I realised there was a lot of physical activity involved in that, and I like pizza. So that wasn't really going to be my career of choice. So I thought, actually, police officer, that's a nice, respectable career. And I was watching quite a lot of The Bill at the time, so that was very popular. And I thought, no, that could be good. I'll do that. And then I realised I probably didn't enjoy confrontation that much. But that was a good few years of my early years that I thought, no, that's for me. So after deciding not confrontation, forensic investigator, that sounds cool. And I thought, was still sticking with the police, and it's still kind of interesting, a bit more sciencey. And then I realised what I probably have to see on a day-to-day basis as a forensic investigator, and realised that I'm probably not that good with gore. By this time, Casualty had started on the television. So, paramedic, that was my next choice. Quickly remembered about the gore and went off that idea. So what I settled on, actually, around the age of 16, was graphic designer, which was completely different to the other choices. Slightly less exciting, but lots more safe. And that was my trajectory through A-levels, and I did graphic design and art, and applied for a position at Southampton University, which I did not get. So that was my first disappointing point, because I decided this was what I was going to be, and somebody told me, no, you can't do that. So I went through quite a horrific, I call it horrific, it's dramatising it quite a lot. Went through quite a horrific interview process where I got on a train for a few hours, went to Southampton with thousands of other people. It felt like it was hundreds, but it felt like millions. And basically we were in a very sort of, I don't know, the apprentice type style. We went through a day of being interviewed, being shown around, and at the end of the day, we were taken into two separate rooms. And those people in the room that I was in said, thank you very much, go home on your train. And we didn't get a place. And that was the end of that. That was the end of university for me. Because I decided after that point, sod university, I'm not going. So what did happen between the ages of 18 and 24? As it says up there, and I don't know, not a lot really. I did lots of things, but they were all quite different and colourful. So this slide depicts some of the things that I did do before the age of 24, in no particular order. I did some telephone sales, which was interesting. I worked in a warehouse. I worked in a kitchen. I worked in a factory that did lots of things with eggs. That lasted 6 hours. I worked for a company that sold holidays on the telephone, which again was sales based. And I also worked for a company that put me in a little minivan and drove me around the local area every day, dropped me off, and I went knocking on people's doors to try and sell them windows and conservatories. None of which I was very good at, particularly the sales stuff. So in 2001, during one of my temporary positions, I got an opportunity to go on a training course. Somebody had seen something in me, which I hadn't seen at the time, which meant that they saw potential. So what they'd seen was that I was quite good at PowerPoint, and my design skills were actually coming through at that point eventually. And they thought, oh, well, let's see what she can do with crystal reports. Anybody remember crystal reports? Yeah? Still love a good crystal report. So I went on a few training courses, and they taught me in crystal reports and crystal decisions, as it was, and SQL Server. And I did that for a few years, and I thought, kind of really enjoy this, want to do a bit more. So I did. That was the start of my journey. There's a theme, astronaut. Stay with it. So in 2003, I left that organisation, and that was my sort of first wavy journey. I learned some Unix, I did some Oracle, I learned about telephony systems, And in 2008, I got my first Microsoft certification. And for me, that was my first professional certification. I was very proud of myself. If anybody knows, you can sit any Microsoft exam, pass it, and get a few letters. So it wasn't brilliant, but it was, for me, a very proud moment. I became, if I can read that, a Microsoft Certified Systems Administrator at that point, which was more than one exam. So I kept going. 2009, I applied to the British Computer Society to become a chartered IT professional. And as I was filling that application form in with a pen, because it was a pen at the time, I thought, I'm never going to get this. Chartered, that's something that accountants get or engineers get. That's something my academically brilliant brother gets. Not me. But it did. I got it. And that started another little journey. And I learned about Hyper-V and Exchange. And then I went to work for the NHS and went backwards a few years. But there I learnt about more core networking and VMware and SolarWinds and Apple products and all kinds of other stuff. So if we go from 2003 to 2013, in 10 years, I was like a sponge absorbing all those kinds of technologies. At the age of 38, those of you who can do the maths will know how old I am now, I had a light bulb moment, and it was whilst I was working at the NHS. And there was a course that they were looking for volunteers to go on to, and that was effectively what we know now as the ISC2 Healthcare CISP course. I can never remember all the letters. But they were looking at bringing that into NHS in England, and they were asking for volunteers to go and sit the course and give feedback to ISC2 to tell them whether it was any good for a UK audience. It was very US-centric. Lots of the governance was all US-based. So that was the kind of feedback that they were looking for. That was a 5-day course, and at that point, I think it was probably about half an hour into the course, I realised security is for me. And that was the light bulb moment, because I came home from that course and everything that I wanted to do after that was 100% security. Now bear in mind, 10 years, we didn't really call it cybersecurity in my world. It was just something that you did with the technology. So, there's another wiggly line coming. 2014, I did some ITIL stuff. It was part of my job that I was doing at the moment. Prince 2. That was the course I've just told you about, the HCISPP, if anybody's interested in the letters. Then, this is when I got home, I went to Northumbria University, not in Newcastle, in London, because it was whilst I was working full-time, and I went pretty much every other weekend to London for 2 years and studied cybersecurity. And I never thought that I would go to university when I decided Southampton experience had sort of scarred me for life. But I went when I was 38 and I did a master's in cybersecurity. And then I did a CISP as I was doing that, because everybody else was, so why not? And then I got a scholarship to do the CCNA Cyber Ops, is what that says, which was a new course from Cisco at the time. At the point, this is very whistle stop, but at the point where I decided to go to university and get the master's, there was a point that I was like, okay, I need that certificate. I need that backing the academically sort of rubber stamp for me to be able to feel confident to go into a CISO role. And that was my ultimate goal, to become a CISO somewhere, because in my mind, that was the pinnacle of security. That was the aim, that I was trying to get to that position, and therefore I'd made it. So that was important to explain, because I sat the certified CISO exam. Has anybody done that? Don't. I learnt very little during that exam, and all they really want to relieve me of is a couple of £100 a year to keep the certification. If you do things like these professional certifications that I've done before, the industry ones, you'll learn so much more. You'll learn about the technology that you're using. These kind of overarching rubber stamped ones, if you've done the underlying work first, you don't really learn that much. But I wanted it. It was nice because, you know, I'm certified CISO now. I then did my ITIL 4 Managing Professional Transition exam. And that's important because that reminded me that I enjoyed learning. So I signed up to do an MBA. Yes, 2 masters. And at the same point, I decided to restart B-Sides in Bristol with some very important people in the room. And this is a few months out of date now, but I've also started a company with those some of those same people doing tech for good type activities. So why have I taken you through that journey? It's quite an intensive journey. It's a long one. It's taken me a number of years to get here. It's not necessarily the path that I would have thought that I'd have done when I was at school. It's absolutely nowhere near anybody else's path, I don't think. And the important part is that you can make your own way, but you have to, go back and learn new technologies, learn new things. There was 2 points in this entire journey where I thought, I need to do something different. I need to change it. And that was when I realized, at the start of this one, I need to do more kind of managey business type stuff. I need to be able to sit at a table with directors and talk to them. I need to be able to translate technical stuff into everyday language. I'm not going to do that just by looking at the computer kit still. Much more interesting pressing buttons, but there is the point where you have to, if you want to progress, you've got to start diversifying your own skills as well. So, on that topic, my takeaway comments would be continue to be curious. Be curious about the technology, but be curious about things that surround it, the people. Every solution isn't a technical solution. So the people are really important, not just the people that are using the technology, but the people that you've got to talk to and interact with every day. Explore things, teaching you all to suck eggs, hopefully, because if you're in cyber, if you're in technology, you've already taken things apart and found out how they go back together again. Share that knowledge. So share in environments like this, share it with people, share it with your family, share it with your co-workers. Don't keep that knowledge to yourself. Share it with everybody, and that's how we improve things. And trust. Trust in yourself, trust in each other, trust in the process. If you'd have asked the 16-year-old me whether I'd be stood here today, being called a CISO and talking to people about how I got there, I wouldn't have had a clue what that even meant. So you've got to trust in your own abilities and keep following what your desire is. If anybody asked me today, why did I want to be a CISO? It's not a really good answer. The good answer is now I can affect change, and I can do things in a capacity as a senior leader that I didn't have the ability to do as a network engineer, as a systems engineer. So if that's for you, then follow that path. If you think CISO, that's great, you must earn a lot of money. It depends on the organisation that you're working for. The stress level is equal to the amount of compensation that you get. My question to you would be, why? Why do you want to be a CISO? Because if it isn't for the right reasons, just don't do it yourself. Find your place to be. Find your place wherever that is in the massive umbrella that is cybersecurity, and go for that. Because you don't want to be unhappy in an industry that is as rich and important as this. So don't follow dreams just because that's the kind of most senior leadership. Follow your own dreams. But it doesn't matter what path you've taken, you can get there. Because if you are curious and you explore, you can learn all the skills that you need to get anywhere you want to be. So, to that message, the important thing is that you believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. And if you want to talk to me any further about any of that, LinkedIn is a good place, or there's my email. Any questions? Ileana.
One is being very cheeky. Are there currently tickets for sale for B-Sides Bristol, which is in August?
You know that they are. They went on sale at 11 o'clock this morning.
Yep. So, if you want to go to Bristol, there are tickets available, and you'll probably hear us all talk again. And secondly, actually, what is the best piece of, I know it's really hard to put into singular, but if someone wants to be a CISO, how do they figure out if that's for them?
It's a really good question, because actually being at this level in every organisation is going to be different. So in the organisation that I work for, which is a financial services organisation, I would say sort of medium to large now. It's very focused on governance. So there's lots of compliance, lots of governance in financial services. If that isn't for you, that isn't the space. A CISO in a different organization might be completely different. This is one of my bugbears at the moment because the description of CISO is different wherever you look. And if it's a small manufacturing organization, which I've worked in previously as well, they might want you to be completely hands-on, and they've given you that title because you're the most senior person in the organization, but you don't have any staff. You're just manager of systems. If you are looking at what I would say is a CISO position, it is not necessarily a board position, but it is a senior leadership position. And you have the ability then to shape that organization in terms of strategy and hopefully embed some good processes and procedures for security. And you don't compromise on the integrity of that. If you are comfortable being at board meetings, being on risk committees, talking to people, convincing them that often they're going to need to do something that slows projects down, that costs more money, that isn't popular, that's a lot of my time. If you're not good with relationships and communicating, you're not going to enjoy it. Because mostly I'll be invited into meetings to come out with an outcome. That might not be the outcome that I want. That might be the outcome that's a compromise. Does that answer your question? Good. Anyone else? Go and ask me anything, I'll be candid. Go on.
Yeah, how do you find the interesting talk back to Mike. How do you find the CISO role compares in the board with the rest of the leadership?
So my position currently isn't a board level position. I report into the IT director, which is a whole other conversation that I'm happy to have. How does it compare? I think I'm quite lucky in the organisation that I'm in at the moment because I do get the respect that I think the position deserves, and the board are listening to me. So, and I think I was quite fortunate that when I went into that organisation, that was the case mostly anyway. So I think it's difficult, having spoken to other people in other organisations, it's difficult for them to get the ear of the board, especially when it's quite a difficult topic to talk about in terms of budget and time and people and all the rest of it that everybody struggles with. I think if you are able to spend time understanding from a finance director's point of view, from a sales director's point of view, what their concerns are, how they shape the business, and then work with them to try and find solutions. If you go in, you can't do that because it's not secure, you're never going to win any friends. If you start with their position in mind and then take it from there. A lot of it is negotiation skills. I'm not going to use the word manipulation, but sometimes that's helpful too, but in a very polite and professional manner. A lot of it is. So when people think, I want to be CISO, forget about all the technical stuff. Hopefully you've got a team for that. You've got to have an understanding of it, and that's easier if you've come up through those technical roles. But a lot of it is sitting in meetings, talking about risk, negotiating budgets, finding ways to communicate with people who don't want to do what you need them to do effectively, and talking about governance, compliance and risk. It's all right. Anyone else?
I just have a question.
Go for it.
Slightly off subject, but I guess you're in charge of recruitment in your team.
Into my team, I will be, yeah.
Yeah. How would you recommend encouraging more women into your team? Because the company I work for, to give some context,
Yeah.
are struggling in that respect. We've tried everything. So is there any insight about attracting women into your team?
So I don't have a diversity problem in my team, just saying. I would say that I've been the only woman in technology and IT in lots of areas for a long time. And it's an ongoing problem, unfortunately. I thought it might have improved. It has slightly, but the retention of women into these roles is now a problem as well. So I think it goes beyond your recruitment techniques. You've got to look at your culture. Because when women get into positions, I'm talking about myself when I talk about women's as well, because when I've gotten into positions before that have been male dominated with the teams, there is a culture that goes with that, especially in technology teams. And unless you are focusing on changing that as well, which is a lot bigger job than just getting some women through the door and on the seats, you're always going to lose them. Because when you put people into an environment that isn't supportive of their needs, why would they stay? And I'm talking about really simple stuff such as the temperature of the office, the ambient noise, whether you ask them to be in the office, when, At what points in the month do they want to be in the office? You know, these are all considerations for women. And at one organisation, they might be more flexible. They might have control over their environment, and they stay because they're physically more comfortable. Most office environments have been designed with men in mind, unfortunately. And so when you look at why women aren't staying, look at where you're putting them. Not just about people as well. Any other questions?
We're at time, so do you have any more questions?
Come see me afterwards.
I'm sure we're in the hall.
Thank you.